the TV networks have the leverage over the colleges because they're paying for everything. They're like, there is no college football if we don't pay for this shit. All that money you guys got, that all comes from us. Whereas the NFL is like, hey, we kind of own the TV networks because the TV network, their most valuable asset they have is the NFL.
Yeah.
They don't have NFL games. That's the biggest ratings they get is the NFL. So that's a very interesting dynamic of like, hey, I know you run them, but don't forget who runs you.
I bet my life I'm a dice shaker. Electric lights on a skyscraper. It's up and downs for
Welcome to Diceshaker Podcast. My name is Jordan Brown. I'm the host of the Diceshaker Podcast. With me as always, man behind the scenes, Tyler Hartley. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jordan.
Rivalry week. I really can't say that word. Rivalry week is in the books. We're on to conference championship week. A lot to get to from college, a lot to get to from the NFL. Talk about the gambling a little bit. Want to start with, we don't have to get into the games. Everybody know Ohio State won, Miami lost, Alabama won, all that. That's fine. What I want to talk about is what happened after the games, because I think it reflects a few things that we've talked about on this show about college football. So I'm sure everybody is aware now, but just to give some context, there was a bunch of fighting going on at the end of these rivalry games. We had, obviously, the fight in Ohio State, Michigan. We had one in Florida State. We had one in, it was a funny one we saw was Arizona State, which is like, I didn't know you guys were playing today. So that's crazy. But it all stemmed from Michigan after they beat Ohio State, maybe the worst loss in Ohio State program history. They went to midfield and attempted to plant their flag, which very funny to watch guys try to plant a flag in artificial turf. That's quite funny to me. It just slams hard and vibrates back in their hands. So that's pretty funny. Ohio State got pissed about it. Jack Sawyer in particular, who has been at Ohio State for 4 years, has started all 4 years, was supposed to be like he's the next white defensive end at Ohio State. So he's supposed to be, after the Bosa's, after Chase Young, bang, Jack Sawyer from Ohio, grew up Ohio State guy, has been there 4 years, has kind of been underwhelming all 4 years, and also has lost to Michigan all 4 years. So he's just obviously upset after that game, especially because I get why he'd be upset. Not his fault they lost. Not defense's fault they lost that game. Yeah, he got an interception on the goal line. He played great. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I get why he'd be pissed. So he goes and they're not ripping down. They're not playing their flag again on our field, whatever. It turns into a fight. The cops get out there because it's football players. And, people get pepper sprayed. The whole, crazy thing. Schools get fined, whatever. All right. And what happens is, that's the first game of the day. That's the noon window, right? And so what happens is there's this thing in college football that we've talked about before, where it's like when Tennessee ripped the goalposts out after they beat Alabama a couple years ago and tossed them in the river, that now became the thing we do in college football, because college football has this thing of you can't let other programs, other teams one-up you. They can't be more. Their rivalry can't mean more than yours does. They can't be the more passionate fan base than you. That's currency in this game is how much your fans care and how much your team cares now. So when people saw Michigan's like, oh, okay, so that's the new move now is we plant flag, we beat our rival, and then we plant flags. In which, listen, Ohio State is going to be a little bit more sensitive to this because Baker did it to him back in 2018, and Baker did it like almost like surprise, because obviously he's originally the coolest guy. He's not forcing anything. All these other guys forcing it. Yeah. Baker was just like, he saw that, like, the game was over. Ohio State had kind of left, and like Baker just saw the flag and was like, "Oh, I know what I'm doing." And he grabs it in his video. And he's running with the flag to plant it. Like, he just did it to be sick. Yeah. He didn't do it to like openly disrespect Ohio State. I mean, he did do it to disrespect Ohio State, but he didn't do it to start a fight.
Well, no, if you're the first one to disrespect you, it's different, right?
But and listen, if you're planting a flag on a field, that's going to start a fight, and that's ultimately why it's going to get outlawed. Is because we have to outlaw all the things that automatically lead to fights.
Yes, yeah.
Because we can't have, like, eventually, like, if you take this to its logical conclusion of how college football works, that if we just let it keep escalating and everybody's got to be more gangster than the other team, somebody's going to get shot over this. Like, that's where it logically goes to, is somebody eventually gets shot. And so they're not going to have, we can't have a fight every time. However, college football, as we move through this new world of big super conferences and new teams playing each other that never used to play each other before, and 12 teams in the playoff, and NIL, so the guys are moving all over the place, and the transfers are crazy. It's transfer season right now. It's going nuts. They need to preserve what makes the sport different from the NFL. If college football, and they might want to, but if they don't want to turn into like NFL Junior and NFL Light, they need to preserve this level of hatred. We need, and again, we can't have the flag playing because we can't be fighting all the time, but there needs to be disrespect. There needs to be anger. There needs to be hatred, because that is the thing that college football can bring to the table that the NFL really can't. There are NFL fan bases who hate each other. Eagles and Cowboys fans hate each other. No question about that. Nobody, and I've been watching football a long time. I watch a lot of games. Nobody's ever been pepper sprayed after an NFL game.
No.
Nobody. That's never happened. Never, because it doesn't ever get to that level, because everybody, first of all, they're just going to fine you. That's number one, right? And like the schools can get fined, but the players can't, because the schools won't make the players employees. If they made them employees and gave them a split of the money, then they could fine them. Can't fine them the way it is. So you can find the schools. The schools aren't ever really going to get, like Ohio State, Michigan got fined $100,000 each. They're like not even noticing that. Like that's Randy Moss, straight cash, homie. Do you know that? You know,
No, I know exactly.
Randy Moss, straight cash, homie. So that's easy for them to do. So like you can't have that impediment there. So they're gonna ban it. But we need to keep this alive. We need to lean into rivalries more than we ever have. So this week like needs to be like, there's obviously like people are giving like the old man thing of like, oh, this is crazy. I can't believe what look at all the money's doing to college football. It's like, first of all, like Ohio State's coach Woody Hayes punched a player in like the 70s at the end of his career, and he's like the most legendary coach they've ever had. So it's like people have been doing fucked up shit in college football for a long time. We didn't just start fighting.
Yeah.
It is, again, the goal might be to become NFL Junior, which I don't want it to be, but that might be the goal. But they got to lean into the hatred. But they also, again, we're now in this world too, because like the thing that was crazy about it was just how, like, again, I've been watching college football a long time. Baker planted the flag that one time. There's probably been a couple other flag plants that I can't think of, and there's been post game fights before, for sure. There's been pre-game fights. There's been in-game fights. It was like one after another. Plant the flag, fight. Plant the flag, fight. Plant the flag, fight. To the point where when Texas and Texas A&M ended, Sark, the Texas coach, was ready for it and told his guys, don't fucking do it.
Yeah.
And that is literally because we're like, these kids watched it on TikTok before the game.
Yeah.
They were getting ready for their game. They're on their phone and they're like, oh shit, Michigan got it cracking. Yo, if we beat them today, we have to do that. And it's an open invitation to that. It's openly saying, you're looking at the team. Like the Arizona State one is wild, because the guy just literally runs out with they have a trident. They're the Sun Devils. So he just runs out to the middle of the field by himself and just stabs the logo. And like looking at them, being like, come fight me. And it's like, okay, so we're just going to escalate back and forth.
I think the disrespect stays, but again, like what Baker did, where it's just like, it's got to be original disrespect.
It's gotta be,
You got to be some thought put into your disrespect, right?
But also, the one thing you got to understand is that, like, if you're gonna, like, that will always cause a fight like that. So it's like,
I think when it's new like that, it doesn't cause the same kind of like an animosity, because you're not ready for it. You're not sure. You can't premeditate what you're gonna do. It's like, maybe that's not good either.
I think the biggest reason it didn't start fight with Baker, and listen, they got pissed about it. Like I remember Nick Bosa getting a sack against Baker when Baker was still in the Browns, and he did like a flag waving like celebration. It was like 2 years later.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So it's like it bothered them.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think part of the reason bothered them is they're like, yo, if we were out there when you did that, we would fight.
Yes.
You did it when we weren't there. And again, the planet going to them and saying like, hey, this is ours now. Like that's always going to cause a fight, and giant levels of disrespect. Like that, big shows of blatant outright that will always cause fights. And what I'm saying is we need to, as college football, lean into it right to the point of where the fight happens. Like we need to encourage, like it's happening right now a little bit. Miami's pissed that they got left. They're probably going to get left out of the playoff. And so they're like talking shit about SEC teams. Let's do that. Let's really get on. Like, I want guys going on Instagram Live a lot. I want guys, like, I don't like when teams are like, hey, like, our players can't have Twitter accounts. I think Twitter accounts for everybody.
Yeah.
I think mandatory Twitter accounts. And, like, I want... like
mandatory tweets.
I want interaction. Listen, what has been the most entertaining thing in pop culture this year? Kendrick versus Drake. Why? Because it got mean. It went back and forth. And that's what we need in college football. We need... And start getting, like, real about it. Like, especially, like, listen, people can pay. Cards on the table. We don't have to pretend anymore. Like, people always, throw the slight shots at, like, hey, like, guy transferred from Alabama to somewhere else. Can't believe you take that kind of pay cut. Ha ha ha. Right? All that stuff. Start calling. Like, I would really like the big time money teams: Oregon, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Texas. Like, when they start getting shit talked by like the Miamis of the world, start calling them broke.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, hey, why don't you get your money up? It's going to be such a problem.
Yeah.
Why don't you join a real conference? Why don't you stop playing the ACC? Stop playing Wake Forest all the fucking time. like that level of like real, like, let's drop the like corporate, and it never will on some level, because like the thing, and people have found this out as the playoff rankings have come out. Like, ultimately, this is a business, and we're just cheering for like arms of a different business, right? This is what the NFL is, right? This is what none of this might ever have in the NFL, because you can't, like, it's bad for business. This is a cartel. It's bad for everybody's pocketbook. So we start doing that, start bringing everybody down. But college football is not quite like that yet. And I would love, like, I really want, and like, so we're about to see. So let's get into it now. So the college football playoff rankings have come out. Obviously, they come out every week. These are the second to last ones. Obviously, the next ones come out after conference championship, and that's the playoffs. That's who we got. First ever 12-team playoff. Couple of things about the play. People are upset. I don't want to get too into it. No, okay, we'll do it quickly. People are upset that Alabama is currently in with 3 losses, and it looks like, unless SMU blows out Clemson, that unless SMU loses close to Clemson would be the only scenario where maybe Alabama's not out. Alabama's probably getting a 3-team. And let me explain to you people again. This is where you gotta understand. People think college football playoff, NCAA tournament. That's the two comparisons that they have, and that those are the same things. There's a fundamental difference between the two things. The fundamental difference is, one, the NCAA tournament is owned by the NCAA. The college football playoff is owned by ESPN. It has nothing to do with the NCAA. ESPN invented this. It is their product. They decide who plays in this. They put the committee together. ESPN is the biggest media. They're basically paying for the sport right now. Them and Fox and NBC and CBS, but they have more. They are in it more than them. They have the rights to the SEC, and they have the rights to the ACC, and they know that the SEC brings in more money. If we put Alabama in the playoff game, more people are going to watch that than if we put Southern Methodist University in the playoff. So that's just how that's going to work, guys. We're going to, it's first of all, it's been that way. It was like that with the 14 playoff. And that's just how it's going to be. More often than not, the SEC's getting 4 teams in. The Big Ten's getting 4 teams in. Notre Dame's getting a spot. The group of 5 champions getting a spot. Then you're getting 1 team from the Big 12, their champion, and you're getting 1 team from the ACC, their champion. That's just how it's going to be. And that's why teams like Florida State and Clemson and Miami and potentially North Carolina and potentially Duke and all these other are talking about, hey, we need to get the hell out of the ACC. It's why Oklahoma and Texas left the Big 12 and are now in the SEC, because you need to play in one of these conferences if you want to play in the playoff, because the playoff is owned by the same company who owns the conferences. So that's just how that's going to work. I don't like, there's no more like, and two, like, it's at least better now, because when we were trying to decide between the 4th and the 5th best team, we were going to leave out a good team. We're going to leave out a really good team, right? Well, now we're trying to decide between the 12th and the 13th, and I think probably within a couple of years we're going to be deciding between the 16th and the 17th. We're picking between flawed teams. Like SMU is not going to win the national championship if they get into the playoff. Likely they're going to get stomped in the first round by somebody. Alabama. Theoretically, I guess you could say they beat Georgia, so theoretically you could say they could win. They're not going to. But it's a lot more goddamn plausible that Alabama could get in, and it's a lot more. And again, so when we look at these matchups, this is one thing that people, just to put the final, I like digging these people because we had to listen to it all year about how the 12-team playoff was going to be bad. There are games this weekend that would not matter at all that are now also playoff games. So like the Mountain West Championship, right? Boise State, UNLV, Nevada, Las Vegas. Normal year, 14 playoff, nobody gives a damn. And obviously, I would bet it, but like if you're not betting it, who wins the Mountain West? It just doesn't matter. Playoff game this year, because the winner's going to be the highest ranked group of 5 team, and they're going to get in. Playoff game. The ACC championship game. Normal year, neither one of those teams would be anywhere close to the playoff. Maybe SMU would be a little close, but they left out an undefeated ACC team last year, so they definitely leave out 1 loss SMU. Winner's getting in automatically. Playoff game. Big 12 championship. Nope. Did you think who's it? Iowa State, Arizona State? None of them would be getting in. Neither one of them would be getting into the playoff last year. Playoff game now. Game matters. And then you talk about how, well, okay, the Big Ten and the SEC doesn't matter. Both their teams that made their conference championships, they're getting in no matter what. And it's like, yeah, they are for sure. But the winner's getting a bye. That's going to matter. They're going to have to play. When I'm looking at this bracket, like now that like the games are like here, it's so many games you have to win the national championship now. And another thing that is, I don't think people are talking about enough, but it's going to matter. If, just say this was the playoffs, just say we went with it right now, we would have Tennessee at Ohio State, Arizona State at Penn State, and then another one would be Alabama at Notre Dame. What all three of those games have in common? Team from the South coming up north in December. Now, we talk about like with the Dolphins in the NFL being candy ass Miami team, the way they play, not built to play in the snow, right? Very true. But that isn't as like, there's guys on Miami have played in the snow before. They've played on other, some of them played in cold weather cities and played in a bunch of snow games and stuff, right? And now, like the ethic, the core of the team and the way they play and how they want to play, obviously, no, it doesn't lend well for the cold. But at least they've got like some ability to do it. These SEC teams and the ACC teams that are in the South, at no point in their history have they played in the cold. You play the teams around you, which are in good weather, and then when it gets late in the year, we play in domes. All the playoff games and everything, it's either in a warm city or it's in a dome. We don't play in cold weather. And so you can have a spread offense and run the way and play the way you want to play with a million receivers and do that because you never have to play in the cold. Whereas the Big Ten, they play in the cold all the time. So they play in a different way because they play more on the ground, more physical because they play in cold weather more often. Now these SEC teams are going to have to go in these situations where they're the lower ranked teams. They're going to have to go on the road in the cold in a crazy hostile environment and do something they've never done before. Like, Alabama has never played in a game like at Notre Dame before. Now, they have, obviously, in their history, but when you play those games, you play them in your non-conference schedule. So you play them early. You play them in, like, September.
Yeah.
Nobody's done this in December. So I think that's gonna be interesting to watch because it's like the SEC may have to change how they build their teams and the type of offenses they run. Because late in the year there's a good chance you're gonna have to go on the road and play in the cold, and that's gonna be interesting to monitor. I just don't think enough people are talking about that. And then so you have to win. Even if you get the bye, you still have to win 3 games to win the national championship. Whereas before you had to win 2. That's an enormous difference, and the difference between 3 and 4, so the difference between not getting that bye is also enormous. This is going to be like the NFL, where it is all you have to do is get in. I mean, listen, something like Indiana can't win, SMU can't win, Arizona State can't win, Boise State can't win, but like the teams that are talented enough, the 5 or 6 teams, it's just going to be like who's the last one standing, right? We're no longer we used to in college football try to do the national champion based on who was the best team, who went undefeated, and then who won the game at the end. Now it's going to be more of like who's the last team standing, which is a different thing. That's a different way of crowning a champion. It requires different things. It basically means like what is your floor becomes more important than your ceiling. Yeah. Because it's not about like can you what's your peak performance? It's more about like when the injuries come, can you like not have the bottom drop out, and listen, in the NIL era, that's why I think ultimately you're going to end up with a salary cap because like it's just so hard in this unregulated world for these teams to like keep depth, so like we're seeing it right now. So like for people who don't understand how this works, and like most people listening probably do, but if you don't understand what the college transfer portal is like, it is like if the NFL, how after the season ends, in that first week of the playoffs, like all the coaches get fired on like Monday or whatever. So it would be like if on that Monday, not only are we firing coaches, but every single player in the league, including the ones who made the playoffs, are now free agents and can leave at any time and go anywhere they want. And we're not going to talk. Nobody knows how much money they're signing. Like there's no rules about any of that. You sign for whatever you want to sign for however you want to do it. And it's every single player is now a free agent. It's chaos for teams trying to keep their own guys, figure out new guys. Like Georgia had a guy who started at corner for them most of the year. He started like 10 games and then got benched for the last 2. He's now in the transfer portal. They have a championship game coming up. And one of their better corners, right? Obviously he wasn't starting anymore, but still definitely playing, is just like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. Crazy. Yeah. And that's just going to, until they regulate, and ultimately, I think, like I said, they're going to want the salary cap, and they're going to want rules around, they just can't live like this forever. Where it's just everybody's a free agent all the time, and anybody can leave at any time, and teams are getting extorted for money, all sorts of stuff. But they're going to have to make them employees to do it. So ultimately, I think that's what it'll lead to. But for right now, when this is just the most chaotic time of college football, where it's like 12-team playoff that we've never had before. Nobody knows how that's going to go. And then we've still got, I mean, it's been happening for a couple years now, but like it keeps escalating. And we have all this transfer portal stuff that nobody knows. Like literally tomorrow, whoever, Quinn Ewers, the quarterback of Texas, could be like in the transfer portal. And it's like there's nothing stopping that from happening. So it's just a very, very interesting time to be a fan of college football. I didn't find the season to be that interesting. There's a couple big upsets, but it wasn't like the season didn't have the juice because there's no great teams, so it just didn't have the juice for me. But this last 2 months or whatever we've got now, less than 2 months, 6 weeks, is going to be very interesting to just see how everything plays out. So that's kind of where I'm at with where we're at in the season. Do want to talk about conference championship games a little bit. So not gonna talk about all of them. Listen, we don't have time for that. Nobody cares about who's winning the MAC. I care about who's winning the MAC championship, but most people don't. So we're gonna stick with the big dogs. Let me pull these up. All right, just want to take a break to tell you guys about Wanna Parlay. Wanna Parlay is a new way to play daily fantasy sports. So for you people who like the prop bets, who like the parlays, this is for you. What it does is it allows you to build a parlay and compete against others to win money and prizes. So how you got to do it is you got to go to the App Store. You want to download the Wanna Parlay app. You're going to create an account. When you create the account, you want to enter the promo code DICE. That's DICE, DICE. That's going to get you a free deposit match up to $250 on your first deposit. From there, you just build your parlays, join groups, compete against others, get put on the leaderboard, win prizes, trips to NFL games, win money up to, I think, $2,000 on a $2 parlay you can win. So check them out. Wanna Parlay. Thank you. There we go. Finally. Sorry about that. All right. So we'll start with the SEC Championship, Georgia, Texas. Line right now is Texas minus 2.5. Georgia did beat them in the regular season. It's going to be a cold day in hell where I take Texas as a favorite to win a championship. Now, was some of that because I hate Texas with a white-hot burning passion? Sure, this is college football. Yeah, it's definitely going to inform a little bit of this. I'd be goddamn if I'm going to sit there and cheer for that team on a Saturday, ruin my goddamn day. What if they win? I'm not going to be happy about it. The other part of it is they haven't won a game of this magnitude. I mean, they won the Big 12 championship. That's not as big as this. They lost the national championship in 2009. This is the biggest game for that program since 2006. Vince Young won the national, or 2005. Vince Young won the national championship. So this is for Georgia, probably the fourth or fifth biggest game in the last 6 years for them. Mm-hmm. So they're just much more comfortable in spot. The game is in Atlanta. Not that Texas fans won't travel. They definitely will. But just comfortable spot. Georgia's used to playing in this game. They beat them the first time. You could make the argument to me that Texas is more talented than Georgia, which I would say could be correct. But I would also say that Texas has only been if you go back and look at who Texas beat Michigan, they stink. They beat Oklahoma, they stink. They beat Texas A&M. They might stink, all right? Texas A&M was not that good, and they got mollywopped by Georgia. Mm-hmm. I think Texas has flaws in that, I don't think their quarterback is that good. Quinn Ewers obviously was the number one player coming out of high school, supposed to be the second coming. He, to me, does not see the game very well. It is a lot of RPO stuff. It is a lot of quick bubble screen type throw it right now stuff. And then Sark, their coach, scheming guys wide open. I just don't think that they're going to be able to scheme guys wide open against Georgia and Kirby Smart. I think Kirby put him in the torture chamber the first time around, and I would trust Kirby to come back. I mean, Kirby's got the rings, right? He's got the pelts on the wall of he's been here before and he's beaten good teams. So until I see it from Texas, and especially I'm getting points, I'm getting 2.5, and it's one of those things too where it's if Texas was really better than Georgia, this would be 3.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
why is it not 3? Because if it went to 3, I think the sharps would go ape shit on it, and I think the books are scared. So I'm gonna take Georgia plus the 2.5. I will contemplate the money line for. We haven't had a game of the year yet.
Well, it's not
Getting close.
It's getting close.
A lot of playoff games left.
Yeah, a lot of playoff games
left. Okay, SMU Clemson, the night game. A lot of tight spreads in these games, which is interesting. 2.5 point spread there again. It's just so hard to trust. Like Clemson's very clearly the more talented team. I don't think anybody could argue that. If you go by the recruiting rankings, if you go by like NFL prospects, you go like very clearly more high end talent on Clemson. Now Clemson doesn't always show up in these games as of late. SMU is obviously the more sort of like greater than the sum of their parts team. You know, their argument would be, well, we're never the best team on paper and we always still win anyway. And I just think that this defense for Clemson is on a different level from anything SMU has seen at any point this year. I think that this game means a lot to Clemson because when Clemson went on that run, Clemson was nothing for a long time. Then they started to decide they want to get good. And so they went on that, they built it, and then to the point where they went on that run where they're the best program in the country for a little while when they went from Deshaun Watson right to Trevor Lawrence. They won a couple national championships, first team to ever go 15-0, all that. Dabo was king, still is king there, but like was seen as like, hey, it's Dabo and Saban as like the 2 top guys. Since then, since Trevor Lawrence left, they've missed on the quarterback after him, DJ Uiagalelei. He sucks. He transferred to a couple other teams, wasn't good there either. And so that set their program back a little bit. They were still very good. They just weren't, they were like a 10-win team. They weren't a national championship level team. And then it got real bad for them last year. And then this year started bad. And everybody was like, okay, it's over at Clemson. Especially like they don't take transfers. They're the only team that like while this transfer portal thing is going on, they just don't participate. Yep. It's like, again, their coach is like super Jesus-y. It's like against their like morals to like do transfers. He's like, no, like I want young men who are going to make a commitment. Meanwhile, Alabama's like sick. We give our players Ferraris.
It's such a bullshit thing they stand on. Like, well, we're all about like this. Like they want their commitment. It's like no, It's just better for money.
Right.
Like,
and so that's what everybody's argument was yo, you're getting your ass beat on this football field.
Yeah.
Because you are out here trying to grandstand morally about what it means to like work hard or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yo, like basically like the game's passed this old man by.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Now Clemson since then has beat the shit out of a lot of teams. Cade Klubnik, their quarterback, who a lot of guys have written off, has played very well. The defense is very good, and they are now in a position where they could make the college football playoff and get a bye and be 2 wins away from being back in the national championship game. It's not possible. It's just a lot. Like it would mean a lot to the program for them to win this game. It would also be a bad look to lose to SMU. And honestly, if we're just as a fan of like we got to watch these games come like Christmas and New Year's time, I'd much rather Clemson be in than SMU. So I'm taking Clemson plus 2.5. That's that one. Last one, Penn State, Oregon, the easiest one for me to pick. It is Oregon minus 3.5, and I will hammer that all night long. I will need to see it from James Franklin he has not won a big game in his life. He loses to Ohio State every year. He loses to Michigan every year. They're good. He never wins the Big Ten championship. He loses in a lot of the bowl games. He has never done it. Oregon is minus 3.5. They are undefeated. I have a plus 800 Oregon future from the beginning of the year. So I have to be on the Ducks, and I could not feel better about this game. If I did not already have the future, this would be the game of the year for sure. But I already have the future. But this guy's probably give you guys some hints as to what I'm thinking for future game of the years. Oregon, like I said, they're undefeated. They have, in my opinion, the highest floor, which I think matters. As we just talked about, I think that matters more than it ever has before. I just think that they haven't. Their quarterback has been in college football for like 6 years. They have a good coach. They're talented everywhere. Offensive line is good. Defensive line is good. It's just they're the safest pick in my opinion. And again, Penn State has literally never won a game like this under James Franklin. So laying the 3.5 is the easiest thing I'm going to do this week. Probably means it's a dead loser, to be honest with you. Listen, 45% college football this year. So maybe you shouldn't listen to me. I'm just telling you. I'll always be honest. That's just how I feel. Oregon minus 3.5 is the play there. So that's conference championship week. All right. That's college football. On to the NFL. Not a ton I want to talk about in the NFL this week. One thing we will talk about, Trevor Lawrence got his eggs absolutely scrambled by Aziz Al-Shaair. Complicated relationship for me personally with Aziz Al-Shaair because he is unquestionably a dirty player. I don't think there's any debate about that. This is not the first time he's done something like this, but he was also on the Titans for a little bit, and I loved him when he was on my team. It was sick when he was playing for the Titans. I was like, yeah, no, hit that guy in his knee when he's not looking. That's awesome. So listen, I'm not going to sit here and morally condemn the guy like a lot of people have doing. I think it's one of those things where the NFL's not going to change their stance on backsliding, meaning that like if he goes down and you hit him, we're going to throw the book at you, especially if you do something like that where it's like you just had so much time to avoid. You're so well to avoid that. Like you've been taught over and over again, don't hit him when he does that. Don't hit him when he does that. It wasn't like that bang of a thing. Mm-hmm. And then also the fight afterwards, like it's like, yeah, obviously, again, it's one of those things where it's like Jacksonville has to fight in that scenario. I think Al-Shaair, like his response, like he starts getting aggressive and like fighting. Like there wasn't a ton of remorse shown is basically the point there. So it's like, all right, that's going to get the book, don't you? What I will say is quarterbacks, especially in the NFL, they do it in college too, but they're big in the NFL. Mahomes is a big guy for this. They take a lot of liberties with the defensive. They put a lot of onus on the defensive player to not scramble their eggs a lot of times because they fake slide, and Mahomes does the like, oh, I'm gonna go out of bounds.
Like
you let up, I'm gonna get more yards. Like he does that thing where it's like and it's like, listen, you could, and if you asked Mahomes or if you asked the guys who do this, and this is not what Trevor Lawrence did in this situation, but it just does happen a lot where guys slide super late. You see in college football a lot. These kids slide super late, and it's literally like they're trying to draw the targeting flag, and it's like, cool, you got 15 yards, and now you drink to a straw.
Yeah.
Like it's not a good idea for anybody to do. And like even from a football perspective, you just want to take like the kid's health out of it. I don't want my quarterback taking a clean shot to the dome for 15 yards unless you stink. If you're awful, like if you're like Drew Aller for Penn State this weekend, it's like, brother, if winning is going to cost us your brain, like, tough. We're just gonna have to make I'm gonna need you to stick your head in there, pal.
Let's coach Jordan for you.
Listen, it's just what it is. But if it's Trevor Lawrence, it's like, no, brother, like don't do that. And so these quarterbacks, something has to be done that gets these quarterbacks to stop fake sliding, stop doing the fake out of bounds thing, stop trying to either bait. You're doing one of two things. You're either trying to bait the penalty, which is dumb on your part and dumb for football reasons, or you're trying to do like what Mahomes is really, really good at, is he's going to act like he's going out of bounds. The defensive player is going to go, shit, that's Patrick Mahomes. That's the sideline. If I touch this, man, this is going to cost me a lot of money. And so they let up. And when Mahomes sees them let up, he just scoots forward for another 6 yards. Yeah. And it's like, that's got to be so infuriating. And like at some point, like it's putting the defensive players in such a hard spot. Now, is anything actually going to change with it? I don't think so. Probably not. Not unless, and it would almost be very funny to be like righteously like knocking dudes out. Because if defensive players were just like, no, like we don't care. Like if they're going to do the fake slide bullshit, I'm knocking them out.
Yeah,
and they just like dealt with the fines and just like like again, like that would be a very funny like because it would be like, all right, on one hand, they're being like, hey, we're being like unfairly treated. So the way we're going to enact change is by giving dudes brain damage
it's
over
like
and
war,
over.
Like true warfare at that point, man.
Like, you know what I'm saying? If somebody's just like, hey, like, we got the Dolphins this week, and we got a chance to make a statement. I think I could kill that kid.
I think I could officially end his career.
I think I could kill him. Like, like that's a very funny idea.
It's kind of where it's headed, though, in a sense. Like,
it won't, because guys won't give up the money. Guys won't pay the fines. Guys are not paying the fines.
What do you think? Aziz
Al-Shaair, whatever he got fined was the max. Plus, he got suspended 3 games. So that's 3 game checks he's not missing. These careers are not long. These contracts are not guaranteed. With guaranteed contracts, damn quarterbacks.
Do you think it takes like someone like Mahomes and getting injured? Like Trevor Lawrence isn't enough. Like Mahomes getting crushed.
They would just throw the book at the defensive player more.
Sure, I guess, yeah.
Like I don't think it's gonna change because like the NFL is not gonna do anything. Listen, I think if you want to protect quarterback, you should tell them like that late slide thing is dumb, because you're gonna get hurt doing that, regardless of how many flags we throw. But if you wanted to be like, hey, like stop manipulating, like the stop like letting up to get the defender to let him go, they're just not gonna do that, because if they say, hey, you can't you can't do that. You can't like fake. I mean, they could maybe make a rule about, because they did, like Kenny Pickett did the sickest fake slide of all time when he was in college. And then they made that illegal.
Yeah.
Where it's like you actually like fake like you're going down.
Yeah.
That's not what they're doing. They're just like slowing down a little bit. But the defenders are so trained that, okay, when he slows down, that means he's giving up, and that means I have to let up. But they're then using that against him. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, oh, you let up and now I'm speeding up again, instead of like sliding or getting out of bounds.
Yeah.
And so that's really hard to legislate.
No, it's really hard. It really is hard to referee that too. Right? Like, who's to say?
Difficult.
You should say, why'd you slow down?
Like, again, the only way it would happen that something would change is if defenders just kept, every time Mahomes did that little let up, guys just ran through his jaw.
Yeah.
And just dealt with the fines and the suspension. They're not going to. They can't.
Well, yeah, it'd also be like this whole season, probably, if you hurt Mahomes enough. You know what I mean? Like, they would hate you.
Yeah. Right. and then, then you would have to keep making the argument of like, hey,
true.
And again, right, like if you think about it from this defender's perspective, like, all right, I'm going to light up Mahomes and I'm going to prevent him from getting 6 more yards. That's going to cost me like a minimum of $50,000.
Yes. Yeah.
Fuck it. Give him the 6 yards. Like, I don't care that.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like just from a selfish perspective of like, yo, you don't get paid more for winning. You do get paid if you make the playoffs, but it's like the outcome of like what's more important is like you don't take the 15-yard penalty, you don't give up $50,000, you don't become like this albatross so you can get a new contract at a different, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah.
It's just nobody's incentivized to actually do anything, but it is unfair and it is bullshit. And so when you see something like that happen to Trevor Lawrence, it's like, okay, that was bad, but let's not act like these quarterbacks aren't out here trying to bait dudes into doing that shit.
Yeah, no, you know, that's a tough spot.
So that's that with the NFL. Listen, the NFL's got a problem moving forward here for the next month. Not that the NFL ever has a problem. It's a license. They know. Put whatever bullshit on. We're gonna watch it. It's Sunday. What else are we doing? So they're fine. But I just mean that like it is December 4th, and the playoffs are basically set. Mm-hmm. The AFC playoffs are almost certainly set. The only thing that could potentially happen is the Colts could get that last wild card spot over the Broncos. The Broncos have a 2-game lead, so I think the models have that at like a 20% chance of happening.
Sure.
Other than that, everything's locked in because there's no middle ground in the AFC. Everybody is either like 8-5 or better, or 5-8 and worse. Like there's nobody in the middle. The NFC is largely locked in as well. There's a little bit more volatility just because anybody could win. Like there's 3 teams that can win the AFC West right now. There's 2 teams that can win the NFC. 3 teams maybe that can win the NFC South right now. No, 2 teams. Mm-hmm. They win the NFC South, and then then it's like, all right, then how do the wild cards shake out between like the Commanders? They're probably getting one. They're 8-5 now, and then of like the Saints, right? Like the loser of the NFC South would be the Saints or the Bucs. They could get in. The loser of the NFC West could get in. Like there's a little bit of volatility at the bottom. They're all basically the same team.
Yep.
So it doesn't really make a difference. And we've still got 5 weeks left to go here.
Yep.
And they're gonna flex some games out of primetime spots, stuff like that. But this next month is college football month. That's what's important this next month's called, and then we're gonna get back in the NFL in January when the playoffs start, because there's really not much. I mean, we got to figure out who gets the 1 seeds. That'll be somewhat interesting. Those teams aren't gonna play again.
Yeah, it's kind of just a lot of games for pride, and like you said, it's not really like that in the NFL anymore.
No, like I said, there's a couple division races still up in the air, but like they're bad division races. Like the I guess you could say the NFC North in because you've got the Lions, the Packers, and the Vikings all there. If the Lions were to stumble a little bit, then that would get interesting. That doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. Mm-hmm. They got the Packers. That's a big game right. If they went on Thursday, beat the Packers on Thursday, that's pretty much it.
Yep.
That's pretty much that division wrap. The Bills already won their division. The Chiefs they haven't won their division yet because the Chargers have 8 wins, but they will shortly. And the Chargers are getting a wild card spot. Their record's too good. They're not going to start losing. So it's just locked in. The playoffs are going to be good. I'm excited for the playoffs. We've got, I think, as you guys know where I'm at with the future of the year on the Chiefs, but 1-2 Chiefs, Bills in the AFC. I don't really think I could consider the Ravens a contender at this point, but then in the NFC, there's at least 4 teams that could win the Super Bowl. And I would listen to an argument for the Packers. I would listen to an argument for the Ravens, to get you to 6 teams. And so that'll be good. That'll be good, interesting games. But for now, we are on college football. That's what we're locked in on for the next little bit. Conference championship this week, into the first 12-team playoffs. National championship game's not until January 20th. Mm-hmm. Growing up back in the day when I was a youngster, national championship game January 6th. And listen, way back in the day, national championship game, first of all, it wasn't a national championship game, used to be played on New Year's Day. We've just bumped this shit out and more. It'd be interesting, too, to watch. The NFL got gangster with the NBA over Christmas Day, where they just said, "Now we're playing." And, like, you guys can't do this anymore. And, like, it was like, well, we still want to have games. Yeah, okay, cool. Have your games. We're having a Beyonce concert in the middle of our game. So, the NFL getting gangster with the NBA. Very interesting to see how gangster the NFL gets with college football. And college football playing games later into the year. Because the NFL likes their Saturdays. They like their Saturdays when we get into December and January.
Of course, yeah.
They like having their Saturday, right? They will Super Wildcard weekend games all the time. And so having these college games going and if college expands it again and goes to 16, that means we got to add, it would be 2 more weeks of games. So that's getting real close to Super Bowl for national championship. Interesting to see how that fight goes. Interesting, because the NFL has got like the TV networks have the leverage over the colleges because they're paying for everything. They're like, there is no college football if we don't pay for this shit. And all that money you guys got, that all comes from us. Whereas the NFL is like, hey, we kind of own the TV networks because the TV network, their most valuable asset they have is the NFL.
Yeah,
they don't have NFL games. That's the biggest ratings they get is the NFL. So that's a very interesting dynamic of like, hey, I know you run them, but don't forget who runs you. And so you're out here.
Oh, so it's just me. It's going to be college folding to the NFL then, right?
But what does that look like? College going earlier? We start in college in August?
I'm just like, if
School's not even in.
If that's what they say we have to do, then that's what they do, right?
That's what I'm saying. There's not an easy solution there. There's not an easy fix. And so then it's like, all right, well, like, is the NFL going to start charging these TV companies more money? They go, hey, you guys are artificially inflating our competition. We need more money. You're making this harder on us. And the TV network's going to go, damn, we got to be out more. We got to be more out of money here for the NFL. We got to get some of that money. We can't be giving all these. What the fuck are we paying Wyoming all this money for? We're going to get some of that money back. But then if the money starts drying up from the college football, all of a sudden these NIL deals, they're not looking so good no more. All of a sudden we're not just doing $50 million buyouts because the coach went 8-6. You know, like now all of a sudden the money's getting a little tighter, and they're like, well, how do we do this with, we don't have all this money to throw around now? How do we do it? I go, well, you guys could impose like salary caps. And you guys could impose like max contracts like the NBA does. You'd have to make these employees. You'd have to let them join a union. And then it's like, now it's like, all right, that's been the battle since college football started. Is like they don't want to do that. So now something in that big long chain, something's got to give. Someone's got to move somewhere. Someone got to do something they don't want to do.
Yep.
And which is very interesting. That's just as a football nerd, as somebody who loves this game and how it all interacts. Just that's off the field bullshit that most people don't care about. But just very interesting to see how this all goes. Is the NFL is very clearly on a warpath of we are marking out everybody. We are pushing anybody around that we want to push around because we can, because we're the biggest, baddest dog. We're the most valuable inventory in television.
Yeah.
So we'll do what we want to do when we want to do it. Right? Like, same again, that's the NBA thing of like, that's the Roger Goodell quote. When they asked him, they're like, how does Roger Goodell feel about you playing games on Christmas Day? And he's like, I don't have to ask. I'll do what I want to do.
Yeah, true.
And that's just the NFL.
It won't, and it doesn't really affect them though either, right? Like it's the same. It's like you don't see that college player coming out. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. You're still gonna watch the NFL, and you'll just find out about him when he comes in, right? Like them suppressing any sort of like TV time they get doesn't really matter to the NFL.
Well, it won't be necessary. Like college football is gonna get on TV, right? Like it's valuable inventory for the TV networks. It's just gonna be more about like how much money are the networks willing to give the schools, right? Like if the NFL jacks up the rates on the TV companies to like try to like push down the funnel to put pressure on college football, being like, hey, like don't forget who runs things around here. We get the primetime spots. We get the attention when we want it. We'll let you can have Saturdays in the fall. We don't feel like having that right now.
Yeah.
But like in the winter and in January, you think you're gonna play a big game late January? No, we do football late January. That kind of stuff. So if they want to put pressure, they would do it by putting pressure on the TV companies via like upping the price or messing with the contracts or whatever. And then that would then funnel down to the TV networks own the schools. So then they're going to stop paying the schools so much money. And then the schools, when there's not much money involved coming from the TV networks, that trickles down to the players.
Yes. No,
and so just where does that give? And it's like, listen, maybe this whole NIL thing is, people didn't know when this thing started what it was going to do and like what the numbers were going to be. And, we've seemed to come to a place now where it's like, all right, like championship roster is going to cost you about $20 million a year, maybe, is that a bubble? Is that, 10 years from now, is that $10 million? Like is all of this money that's in college football right now always going to be there? Or is there going to be a point where college football, because of its greed, because of its need to, hey, if we have more games and a bigger playoff and more inventory to sell, we can get more money from these TV companies. Are they going to end up hustling backwards on it? They end up getting so like, hey, we're big that the NFL goes, actually,
just
that's enough.
Flying too close to the sun a little bit. Yeah, I get exactly.
Actually, no, there's one big dog in town.
Yeah,
that would be us.
I understand.
So I know you right, especially if the SEC and the Big Ten are thinking about like, hey, like we're going to break off from the NCAA and become NFL Junior. Then I think there could be either the NFL is going to, we want in on this, like some sort of direct tie-in, like to where like, you know, like the NFL owns a chunk of this new Super League, or they're going to go, oh, that's funny. You think you're starting like a new like quasi-professional football league, do you? Have you heard about what we've done to the other people who try to start professional? Anybody know about the UFL? Anybody ever heard of them? Mm-hmm. Nope. Well, the XFL. How's that going, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? How'd the XFL work out for you? Oh, the NFL squashed that one too. The NFL squashes every ounce of competition possible. And so if college football want to actually be like, oh, we're competing with the NFL, that's not going to go super great. So then it's like, okay, so then how do they like, basically like how do it's basically like if you want to open a business in the mob's territory, it's like you're gonna have to pay them off to make this happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise they're gonna burn your shit down. It's kind of like that. And the NFL really is like the mob. You know why the NFL is like the mob? It's founded by the mob. Go look into that. We're not going to get into that here. We'll leave you guys with that. NFL founded by a lot of Italian guys in New York in the early 1900s. Just look into it. Look into some of the names. Look into where the money came from. All right, that's a Diceshaker Podcast. Thank you.
My life, I'm a dice shaker. Electric lights on a skyscraper. It's up and downs for